Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with, yes, yet another of these Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur Series releases. We have the 1/18th scale Gorgosaurus, and I know this is one that many people were looking forward to, not just because of the species, but because of the pretty darn cool looking paint scheme. I'm pretty sure this paint scheme was actually created by Shane Folks, if I remember correctly, and that would explain why the paint scheme looks as nice as it does, because he's one of the greatest paleo artists on the planet. But you can see the box and everything looks pretty much as it usually does. Again, you've got the nice window area, the species name, the Tyrannosaur series, the scale, and of course some absolutely epic artwork over here on the side showing off the figure if the glare stops killing it. And then if we turn it around, you can see again a nice image on the back of the figure, as well as the checklist for the entire Wave 3 of the Tyrannosaur series, all of which we have now reviewed, except for the Daspletosaurus. And then, of course, information over here all about the species and the figure itself. So let's pop this box open and check this out. Inside the packaging, as soon as we open it up, of course, we've got ourselves the instructions here to assemble your figure, to put the tail on and readjust the legs, switch the legs out for the other legs, all of that fun stuff. Again, it's very important to read this if you have not ever acquired a Beasts of the Mesozoic figure before, so you don't damage your figure. You definitely want to give that a read. And then, as always, we've got the card. You can see the card looks very nice. Again, it's got a nice finish on it. These always have such a beautiful finish to them. But you can see a super cool action-packed image here of our Gorgosaurus on a rampage. He's got slobber flying everywhere there. Looks really neat. And then here on the back, again, a little dino toy photography, the species name, some information about the species, and again, Raul Ramos, who is responsible for the art and the Creative Beast Studio website right there. Then we've also got the alternate feet here, which you can see. Again, you've got a few different versions that you can attach to your Gorgosaurus to switch it up as far as the pose goes. And we also have actually, let's go ahead and just move this open here for a minute. We have the alternate legs back here as well. Again, these are the more articulated legs, because the legs that are on the Gorgosaurus currently are the solid, more stagnant legs, whereas these allow you to pose your Gorgosaurus a little bit more than what we have with the legs that are on it currently. And then, of course, we've got the base as well. The base is always something that I personally am a big fan of. Ever since I started collecting dinosaurs, started seriously collecting dinosaurs, I've been a very big fan of bases with my dinosaurs, so I do really appreciate the fact that they consistently include bases with these releases. And then we have our Gorgosaurus itself, standing nice and pretty. Let's go ahead and move the camera up a little bit, get a better look at it. And there we go. We can see what the figure looks like, and just as I expected, it's really quite nice looking. Again, Shane Folks, who I believe, if I remember correctly, is responsible for the paint scheme that we have here. He did a great job, and you can kind of just see that Shane Folks influence here with the way that the patterning looks. It's something that he does quite often, and I've always been a big fan of it. This one also, of course, sports really impressive bluish tones, which isn't something that you can always put on a theropod dinosaur and expect it to look like the color of the dinosaur, but I feel like they have done a very good job. They have actually done that here quite nicely, and we've got some yellowish tones included in there as well, which I think help to make the coloration pop even more. So let's go ahead, as always, and jump straight to a closer look, and we'll check this out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Gorgosaurus, you can see it sports some very, very nice looking skin texture. That's not something that shocks me, because we always have really nice looking detail on the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures, but it's not always that you get the opportunity to really see how good the skin texture looks with some lighter coloration, and in this instance they've perfectly painted this out to allow you to see how impressive the fine detail is, because not only do we have this lighter coloration for a large portion of the face, but we've got a dark wash that has been applied. It's applied perfectly where it's not overbearing, but does exactly what it's set out to do, and that's highlight all of the scale detail. And I think that, again, can really show off how impressive it is. You can also see we have a darker tone that kind of runs up and over the tip of the snout right here. We've got the nostrils sculpted sculpted out. We also have some beautiful brownish tones applied to the upper part of the head here up in the crest, and you can see that we have a like darker brown, I guess looks like a wash that's been applied to there as well, just to add a little variation of color, help to give it a nice realistic look. And then of course the blues kind of running up here from the body into the face, running up along the top of the palate toward the nostrils right there. And then you have a little bit of that yellow kind of showing up here basically underneath the blue in a few different spots. We do have the eyes painted out with a light tone, kind of like a tan sort of tone, similar actually to what you see up there in the crest. And you can also see a black pupil, and it's shining very nicely because we have a gloss coat on it to give it that realistic eye shine. If we open the mouth, because of course we've got a nice articulated jaw for our Gorgosaurus, you can see the teeth there sculpted on the inside of the mouth. They are all sculpted individually and sculpted to perfection. They have very nice paintwork to them, which again, if you know the beasts of the Mesozoic line, you know how precise and perfect the paintwork consistently is. You can absolutely see that in there. Again, they've done a great job of painting the teeth on the inside of the mouth. Same deal for the teeth on the lower jaw. Super, super impressive. And I love the fact that we have a nice light pinkish tone here, but you can see the tongue is a different variation of a pink, and I think that just helps to make the tongue stand out quite a bit. And you can really see how nice the paintwork is actually on the inside of the mouth on the upper side. They've applied some nice variation of color, which I think they should always do, because I feel like that definitely helps to add a very nice dose of realism to the inside of the mouth of the figure. And of course we have a gloss coat on top of everything to give it that very nice saliva-like look. So there you can definitely see that we can articulate the tongue a little bit there, which is a very nice touch. Again, something that I really enjoy about the Tyrannosaur series figures. I'm sorry if that wasn't the best view of it, but you can articulate the tongue. As you move back here, you can see the ear, and I like that they've actually highlighted the ear with kind of like a pinkish tone. That's a very small, minor touch, but I think it helps to add a lot of realism to the figure. We can continue to see that even though as we move into the blues and yellows, we still have that dark wash at play, which is a really good thing. Up here, you can see actually not just the dark wash, but in the bluish areas, they've dry brushed out the skin detail with a darker tone, and I feel like that was a really nice touch, because if they had just left it this light blue, I really don't think it would have looked that great. I feel like it would have looked more like paint on a figure rather than body color, and it just wouldn't have looked quite as natural as it does because of the fact that they have included the darker tones like a black dry brushing and the wash. It definitely helps to darken the blues a little bit, in my opinion, to help make it look a bit more realistic. Of course, moving back, you've got a nice spot of articulation in the neck right here, which can move a little bit, not much in the way of up and down, a little bit left and right, but you've also got another spot down here at the bottom of the neck, and once you get to that point, you do have some decent posability in the neck. You can see you can get some nice turns in the neck. You can also go up and down, not a whole lot in the way of up and down, you can see, but definitely a little bit in the way of left and right. And they have absolutely improved the articulation compared to the older large figures. Like if you go back to the T-Rex and look at the articulation in the neck on that one compared to these ones, I feel like the newer ones definitely have better neck articulation. One slight downside actually that I see to mine is the fact that the lighter tone here that you see in the snout kind of runs down, doesn't really line up perfectly right here, which is surprising. That's not something that I usually see from these figures. You can see, especially as I turn the head, it looks like it's a separate piece that's been applied, so it doesn't line up perfectly when moving down the course of the neck. So that is a little bit of a bummer for this figure. But as you look here, you can see the skin detail looks incredible. You have all sorts of wrinkles and creases moving down here through the course of the neck. Same deal for the throat, and I like that on the throat we actually have some pinkish tones showing up here, moving along the underside of the throat, which was a really nice touch on the part of the paintwork here on the part of David Silva. And you can see, or actually I should say Shane Folks, but as you move down, you can see that the paintwork starts to kind of break up here as the blues and yellows sort of mesh with the lighter tones, and they all sort of break out and lead out in a very cool pattern moving through the course of the stomach and even down into the arm. You can see as you move into the arm, there's still some more of the yellows showing up here and there, and you can see that dark wash again at play. We have the nails painted. The nails are painted with a nice light brown, which looks really good. Of course, we have articulation in the arms forward and back and out away from the body a little bit. So you've got some nice mobility there. You even have elbow articulation, which is surprising considering how small these arms are. That can swivel, I think. Yes, definitely can swivel. And then wrist articulation just to top it all off, although my wrist articulation is currently very stiff. You can swivel it as well. But very nice articulation there. As you move up into the stomach region, I think that the scale detail absolutely shines in the best way possible right here. Like, you can really appreciate how good the scale detail is because that dark wash is making it pop so nicely. And I love that even though we have the light blues, we have darker blues showing up sporadically through the course of the figure, just giving it even more variation of color. And then again, you've got all sorts of skin wrinkles and skin creases as you move down toward the lower part of the stomach and back toward the thigh. We also have some midsection articulation again. Not too posable right now, but I feel like if you work the figure in, that'll become a lot smoother. That's usually how it works when these guys come out of the box. They're a little stiff, but then as you mess around with them over time, they become more articulated, I guess you could say, more posable, or at least they agree with you more when it comes to attempting to pose them. As you move here, you can see again the skin texture, scale detail, everything looks absolutely phenomenal. Moving down into the leg, you've got some very nice muscle definition there in the thigh and calf, of course. We again have the bluish tones, but we also have that mixture of the lighter and darker blues, as well as that dry brushing moving down. You can see that again we have the coloration kind of creeping in here from the back with the yellows sort of creeping into the blues, and then we transition to that lighter tone as we move back even further. And then you lead down through the course of the legs and all the way down into the foot. You can see some nice scoots running down the front of the foot down into the toes. And there's some very nice variation of color down here. As you can see, there's some green in the toes. So basically we have the blue and the dark wash running down over the scoots of the toes. And then when you move down into the undersides of the toes, you have a very cool greenish tone that picks up. And I think that looks really nice on the foot sculpt. Pretty heavy gloss coat on the foot of mine for some reason, but you can also see the nails are painted with that light tan, but they have a brown wash applied to them, which helps to give you variation of color even to the nails. And it also has again a gloss coat for the nails, which is a very nice touch, helping them shine. You can see the dew claws are also painted. And then we move back up here into the tail, and as we lead out, we basically continue to have that same pattern, that same design moving through, where we have the yellow sort of like looking like fire almost up into the bluish tones. You have the darker blues showing up. You can see a few spots right there of the darker blue, and that pretty much continues to run the entire length of the tail all the way out here before the yellows start to kind of disappear, and then we basically just have the darker variations of blues out there for the tip. As far as the rest of the articulation goes, again, you've got the hip articulation, which is actually really smooth. You also have knee articulation, which is also quite smooth, shockingly. You can swivel the knees as well. Nothing else going on down through the course of the rest of this leg, but you do have the alternate legs that you can put on that we said earlier has more articulation than these. You can put those on to give it a little bit, I think, more like ankle articulation and stuff. Then you move out into the tail, and you've got a few joints of tail articulation, one here, and then one here. And those are basically just like your regular everyday joints. This one is like uber stiff. I cannot get that one to move. There we go. You can see again, it's your regular everyday sort of tail joint like you would expect to see. All of them work the same, but as you reach this point, this is actually a wire for the tail again, so you have that extra bit of posability out there at the tip of the tail. And then if you run along the underside, again, you can see all of the skin texture looks great. The scale detail looks great here as you move along the underside of the Gorgosaurus, and not a whole lot when it comes to variation of color down here, basically just the light tone and the dark wash, but I think that's all you really need until you reach the neck and throat, and of course you have that pinkish tone showing back up. So if you take a look over here, again, everything's going to look pretty much the same. Considering it's a fully posable figure, you're really not going to see any difference from one side to the other. Overall, it is a very nice looking Gorgosaurus for sure. And then of course you also have a base. The base is a nice little earthy area, kind of with like some rocky formations, as well as some vegetation. And I like that the vegetation has some variation to the greens. You have like darker greens and a different shade actually of kind of darker green. None of them I would say are particularly light. You've also got like a stick and stuff over here, and then again some nice paintwork through the course of the rocky formations. I feel like this is actually the same type of base we've seen a few times with these figures. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong, but it is again a very nice base to go with a gorgeous model. And of course, as you can see, the figure actually stands really nicely on these solid legs, you know, the legs with less articulation. It stands with absolutely zero issues. As far as a size goes, boy, we really got to get this guy out of screen here so that we can get the tip of the tail in screen. For a length, you are looking at about 20¼ inches or around 51½ centimeters. And then for a height, again, this is all dependent on where you pose the dinosaur, because you could make it quite tall overall, but about a little under 7¼ inches or just shy of 18½ centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being next to our Gorgosaurus. And you can see it has a very nice, very impressive size, as they usually do when it comes to the last few Tyrannosaurs that we've acquired in this line. Most of them have had a very nice, very impressive size, but they've all been fairly similar in size, and I think because of that, we don't need to do too many comparisons. Basically, what I need to do is just grab some of those other Tyrannosaurs that have released with this wave and bring those in. So honestly, I think I may only need to do one comparison after I brought this guy in, which is the Albertosaurus. You can see it is absolutely the same size as our Gorgosaurus. I would say pretty much exactly the same size. I don't feel like they differ at all. If we put them next to each other and take a look at them, they look like they are definitely the same size. So again, if you happen to have seen my review of the Albertosaurus, you will have seen quite a few comparisons in that video to help give you an idea of the size of this one. Again, I feel like the size difference is pretty much non-existent. You know, there's no difference at all. They look like they are exactly the same size. Just in case you did want another comparison, though, here is the Dryptosaurus from Wave 2, which you can see is quite a bit smaller, actually, than our Gorgosaurus. And then just in case you don't have any Beasts of the Mesozoic figures, here's one more comparison with just some generic random Mattels, as we have a Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus. Again, just in case you're not your average Beasts of the Mesozoic collector, this should help to give you an idea of the size of this Gorgosaurus. So this brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic super articulated 1/18 scale Gorgosaurus is definitely, again, a really nice figure, like every figure in this line basically is. Not a single one has been anything less than stellar, and we again have that here with the Gorgosaurus. I think the sculpt looks great. It's very highly detailed. You know, again, I would expect no less, but the detail really shines on this one because they've applied this nice dark wash to the figure that makes the detail pop in the best and I would say most realistic way possible. There's also a very cool coloration for it. Again, the bluish tones are definitely going to make this one stand out. It's going to make everybody turn their heads and look at it because of the blues. It's not something you see every day, and it's not something you see every day look actually quite natural on a dinosaur like this, but Shane Folks, when it comes to his original paint job, absolutely nailed it and definitely gave us a very cool, very memorable paint scheme for this one. And the way that the blues and everything play off of the yellows and the lighter tones, it all just meshes to give us one of the nicer paint jobs we've seen in the line. And then, of course, you have a mountain of articulation, as you can always find with a Beasts of the Mesozoic release. Again, one of the most appealing aspects of these figures, not to mention the fact that they are just so up-to-date and accurate, and you have Tyrannosaurs with lips, which I know many people enjoy, but again, you can articulate the figure into pretty much any position you would like, and that's always a great thing. So overall, this is definitely a very cool release from the Beasts of the Mesozoic. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I know many people are saying that this is their favorite one of all. I can't say it. I don't even know if it would be in my top 3, but it is a very cool one, and it is definitely another really quite nice looking figure. So if you are interested, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase it right now on the Creative Beast Studio website. So make sure you check that link, go grab this Gorgosaurus, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.